Super Mario Manga Mania is an official collection of short stories from the long-running manga series Super Mario-kun, handpicked by author and illustrator Yukio Sawada. And I have to say, besides Mario calling one of the bosses a scumbag along with much of the other unexpected crude humor, the biggest thing I'm surprised by and the topic of today is that a lot of niche Mario games were given priority here. Seriously, take a look at these picks. I'm glad that Yukio was given apparent freedom to select any of his stories based on any one of Mario's games. And not just the most popular, as I'm near certain Nintendo would have done had they held a tighter grip on the project with their white-gloved hands. Because of that official Nintendo licensed product seal, I was expecting stories from, say, Super Mario World, 64, or some of the Juggernaut's newer titles as an advertising opportunity. But no, they clearly respected Yukio's choices and vision. Out of the 9 stories called stages in this book, 3 are based on Super Mario Sunshine, arguably the most divisive main series Mario entry, which has otherwise only been in the spotlight recently because of Super Mario 3D All-Stars on Switch. And at the time of this video, the Switch version is the sole re-release in 18 years, slated to no longer be available for purchase after March 31st of 2021 anyway. 3 more stories focus on Paper Mario, with 2 of them hailing from Super Paper Mario specifically, a game with mixed reception Nintendo has since distanced from, reportedly because of its elaborate story that led away from the Mario universe. There's even a tale from Mario and Luigi Partners in Time. And that's significant because besides a Virtual Console release in 2015, this second entry in the Mario and Luigi RPG series is another game Nintendo's purposely ignored. Its developers, Alpha Dream, who have sadly declared bankruptcy in 2019, decided to skip it entirely for the 3DS remakes. Only the first and third game, Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story respectively, received that treatment. So while Super Mario is Shigeru Miyamoto's baby, Super Mario-kun is Yukio Sawada's. This project in particular is near and dear to the author's heart, made especially apparent with a special section in the back of the book, prefaced with 2 heavy material disclaimers for parents, because the story was inspired by the author's own experience of losing his father. The segment in question is still filled with tomfoolery, as is clearly normal with this series, but it deals with serious subject matter relatable to most adults. For example, the author discusses having to remain stoic despite internal hardship. He reflects on needing to maintain a bright and cheery disposition because his career requires making people laugh, and because of that it can sometimes be the hardest job in the world. After Dr. Mario shoves a giant miracle pill into a depressed Mario / the author's mouth, don't worry, Luigi requests to see his medical license, which marks an instance of official Nintendo material ripping on this continued malpractice in the Mushroom Kingdom. The tale ends with a good moral. Mario realizes it was those very jokes he had to continue making then that helped him through the tough times. There's a couple more pages afterward of Yukio explaining what this comic meant to him as a creator, making for a heartwarming read I wasn't anticipating from a slapstick series with this as the cover. That's just a bit in the back of the book though, or front of the book if you're this reviewer who doesn't know how manga works and unfortunately rated it 1 star because of it. Please don't do this. The bulk of the content here is that aforementioned gag comedy the series is known for, as a collection of greatest hits. The author likes to self-deprecate by referring to his humor as low-hanging fruit, and lots of it certainly is with its puns, and easier gags like characters constantly and illogically mishearing what others say. For example, on a hot summer day, Kammy Koopa brings Bowser cool trading cards instead of something to cool him down with. But it's all paired with great visual humor and fourth wall-breaking remarks that sort of remind me of what made Captain Underpants such a great read growing up. The author inserts himself as himself, when he's not self-reflecting through Mario's character, to offer sarcastic quips on the page sometimes outside of panels. He, and most of the characters by extension, use snarky language too. At one point, Yukio himself calls Mario and Luigi old dudes with gnarly stashes. In another chapter, Yoshi reads Mario's palm, and claims to see dummy and dingus lines as he expected. My favorite recurring joke is when characters fall over with their feet sticking up after another says something ridiculous, which happens a lot, and is played with at one point when nobody else is around. Whose feet are these? I also laughed out loud a few times, like when the otherwise emotionless water pump Flood starts bawling over a sad story, and when Bowser, all dressed up for the part, offers himself up as a replacement child for Gramby. I was also impressed with the callbacks to other games in the Mario universe. In the Super Mario Sunshine Christmas special, Yoshi follows Mario and disguises himself poorly by way of triangle sunglasses. This can be seen as either in homage to Boshi, a Super Mario RPG exclusive character, or the enemies of classic Paper Mario, donning shades to differentiate themselves from the non-hostile members of their species. Then in the following story, Luigi instinctively grabs a poltergust when Mario's gone missing. It's clear the author knows his stuff. So this manga brought out the longtime Mario fan excitement in me, because it felt like I was revisiting what I like to call the experimental Mario era. Recent games of the franchise, such as Super Mario Odyssey, have thankfully been exceptions. But ever since around the age of the 3DS and Wii U, Nintendo has made obvious efforts to sterilize the Mario universe. Suspicions that restrictions for modifying established characters or creating new ones had been set in place for series spin-offs like Paper Mario were finally confirmed in a 2020 interview with the Origami King's producer, Kensuke Tanabe. I quoted it earlier in the video, but the interview goes on to explain why, ever since Super Paper Mario, we haven't seen any physical variations of enemies or Toads besides their color, and in rare cases, their outfits. Female Toads that aren't Toadette, along with Toads of different sizes and ages, like the elderly Toadsworth, are non-existent in modern Mario. Remakes and ports of old games like the aforementioned Super Mario Sunshine don't count, but this sterilization is evident in remakes nevertheless, like those 3DS remakes of Mario and Luigi, Superstar Saga, and Bowser's Inside Story. While Toadsworth didn't get the axe for these releases, these updated versions changed the stylized staple Mario baddies to match their main series counterparts, just like the newest trilogy of Paper Mario. I'll stop going on about this, but my point is to hammer brother in how refreshing it is to see varied Toads and NPC races never explored again, like Nimbies taking center stage in an official Nintendo product in 2020. And it's surreal to see the games they're from, in this case Super Paper Mario, getting this much love, despite Nintendo seemingly holding them up as examples of what direction to not take Mario in. In the case of an included story based on a Mario game that is universally beloved by the majority, Super Mario Galaxy, I was happy to see Bouldergeist, a one-off boss that initially didn't have any characterization in the game, receive a light backstory here. With exception to Rosalina's storybook, originally written by the game's director in secret mind you, the Galaxy games weren't exactly story-dense, so it was cool to see an exploration in plot where there wasn't any in the source material. As evidenced by the Super Mario Bros. Films, yes, plural, and the several animated series attempts, this can be a challenge. So we'll just have to see how the upcoming movie by Illumination fares in that regard. This book is a relic of a time when Mario canon wasn't so strict, and its selections, as far as I'm concerned, are love letters to the lesser appreciated games of the plumber's history. Surprise is the word I think best describes this book, in a good way of course. I'm surprised to have read an autobiographical short story lamenting loss through the lens of Mario. I'm surprised these words are coming out of Mario's mouth, and I'm surprised to see characters like Tippy and Count Bleck return in a celebrated collection. Most of all though, I'm surprised that we're just now getting an English release after 30 years of serialization in Japan. Okay, with content like this maybe I'm not all that surprised. But it's still kind of crazy that the first time I ever heard about Super Mario Kun was through the 25th anniversary event in Super Mario Maker back in 2015. where you could unlock a costume based on Yukio's design. Now that some form of the manga itself has reached the US, and if a true English localization of the series doesn't start like it already has with the French and Spanish translations, I'd really like to at least see another best of release in the future. The author himself notes that doing another volume of Super Mario Manga Mania would be a great opportunity to include stories that weren't featured this time around. There are only 9 of the near 700 chapters depicted here after all. Yukio is actually a bigger fan of the Mario-related stories in which Mario doesn't appear, which is very interesting and I would be delighted to read them. If you want a read for some mostly immature laughs and a few poignant moments, I'd say give this manga a go. Plus it has Luigi, Mr. L, rubbing a pure heart on his ass. Well, with that, I'm sorry Ready Player 2, this is now officially the best video game related publication of 2020. I'm going to leave things at that lovely image. Thank you everybody for watching me talk about this book based on a video game franchise I love. This style of video is a bit of a departure from the standard stuff on the channel, so I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time, and hopefully eventually to explore a future English volume.